Welcome back to Big Mouth and welcome to the dceu Daily. Remember, you can follow me, talk to me and tag me on Twitter at MoviesTVMad. Let's talk. Today's not a day for articles or news. Let's talk. It's been an almighty week of a clusterfuck for WB Pictures. The Ray Fisher interview on The Hollywood Reporter. Vanity Fair's interview with Chris Terrio finally speaking out. So let's just imagine if when Christopher Nolan came to WB and said, David Goyer has an idea for a Superman film. Imagine if Man of Steel was the continuation of Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. Wouldn't have that made more sense? Otherwise, as a studio and a holder of an IP, why would you get involved with Goyer and Nolan? The whole point of those two people is they had a great selling point because they had just executed, one of the best movie, if not comic book trilogies of all time. The Dark Knight trilogy is amazing. There's no reason why a studio wouldn't want that trilogy to bleed into the DC Extended Universe. Jesus Christ, what I'm saying is that Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy should have been the beginning of the DCEU. It should have been. It would have been amazing. Bale and Cavill together would have been amazing. Now, I love Batfleck, but that should never have been an issue. We should never have needed a new Batman. This is not hate for Ben. This is saying we already had an awesome and epic Batman. We already had a great trilogy that could have been the leaping off point for the DCEU. Then you could have introduced Superman, Man of Steel. So you've already got one origin trilogy. You can do Superman's origin trilogy. Then you can do Wonder Woman's origin trilogy. Literally, you can do origin trilogies, right? And then finally get to Justice League. Or if you don't want to take that long, at least do individual origin movies which bleed into a Justice League movie. We've already discussed that it was a mistake for WB and for Snyder not to do these individual origin movies before they leapt into Justice League, right? I don't believe that's Zack's fault, by the way. He just went with what he had and what they wanted him to do. He had no choice. But Chris Terrio has already told us via that Vanity Fair interview, he didn't know what Themyscira looked like. He didn't even know if, Atlanteans could speak underwater. And this is the interesting thing again. You've got David Goyer, who's kind of got involvement in comics. Christopher Nolan, who knows nothing about comics and had to research Batman comics to execute his idea for the Dark Knight trilogy for Batman Begins originally. Chris Terrio knew jack shit about comic books, but he was brought in to write Batman vs. Superman and Justice League. And WB keep on doing this, bringing people in who know nothing about comics. Now, I love Man of Steel and I love BVS and I love Zack's Justice League. Zack knows a lot about comic books, right? And David Goyer does too, as well. That's why in a lot of ways Man of Steel was the perfect fit. And it works and it's beautiful, even though some people don't like that movie. And I can accept that. But believe you me, if Man of Steel was a continuation of the Dark Knight trilogy, it would have worked perfectly. Perfectly. And right now, we could have had, as I say, the individual films, just 3 Justice League movies or whatever, and everyone would be loving what they're seeing. But Christopher Nolan's involvement in this franchise is problematic because it's a huge lack of an involvement. So I remember how the story works. David Goyer is constructing the screenplay for The Dark Knight Rises. Writer's block, he says he's got a story for Superman. Chris goes to WB. They say, great, you've done well for us already. Let's do this. I'm quite sure WB would have said, you're continuing it, right, from the Dark Knight trilogy. No, that's my story. That's finished. You're directing Man of Steel, right? No. Here's Zack Snyder. So he co-writes the story of Man of Steel, Nolan, with Goyer, and that's it. That's the end of his involvement, apart from an executive producer credit on the other movies, mainly Zack's movies. So none of this makes sense from the beginning, does it? Because Continuing from the Dark Knight trilogy would have been perfect, amazing, epic and awesome, because you already had a grounded kind of universe being formed. Imagine the extra box office for Man of Steel. People were in love with Christopher Nolan because of the Dark Knight movie, right? That had so much potential. That should have been the origin and the inception of the DCEU, not Man of Steel. Man of Steel should have been the continuation. That makes sense. But I'm going to go one thing more further than that, because we've already discussed many times about how I feel the Dark Knight trilogy, Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, should have been the beginning of the DCEU, and Man of Steel should have been the continuation of the Dark Knight trilogy. But these bums shouldn't have even ever gone to Nolan. They should have had more sense than to go to Nolan. You don't go to someone who has very little comic book knowledge and very little love for actual comic books, right? We know that. Nolan is a very talented auteur director and a writer and a storyteller. There's no question about that. But they already had Bruce Timm on their books, the constructor of the DC animated universe, the DCAU. It's a great success. The DC animated universe is literally the MCU of DC. It's a catalogue of movies, some from the same universe, some from Elseworld stories. It's a huge success. I think there's got to have been about 30 to 50 of them thus far. And there's a Batman movie coming, right? With Jensen Ackles playing Batman. It's been a huge success. So it's pretty clear. And let's not forget the Justice League animated TV shows, Justice League Unlimited. Huge successes. All from Bruce Timm. That's sensational. What a huge success. The Green Lantern animated series, which they did after Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern movie. A huge success, but they didn't do any more. But it was great. I watch it all the time. Absolutely fantastic. Fantastic. Wouldn't you, as a holder of the IP, think, Jesus Christ, we got this guy Bruce Timm. He can construct an amazing DC extended universe of live action movies. But no, they went to Christopher Nolan, who knew very little about comics. And this is where the problem lies, everyone. Bruce Timm would have been the Kevin Feige. And I say this every day as well. Doesn't matter what you think of Feige. He has knowledge of the comics, the Marvel comics. He knows. He's a great producer. He's proven that. Everything is in his cupboard, his closet, to be successful. And he was, even prior to the MCU. He was involved with Raimi's Spider-Man movies, Singer's X-Men movies. You name it, he was there. That guy's been there for a very long time with many, many successes that you didn't even know he was involved in. And Bruce Timm has been involved with all the animated universe movies. If you haven't seen the TV shows, right, you should check them out. There's Batman, there's Superman, there's so many. The man's a genius. He was the right man to run the DC Extended Universe. Now, I give credit for me talking about this because Leroy King in my comments and my live comments when I was premiering the last DCEU Daily when we were talking about Chris Terrio even said that himself. And that's from a really loyal Zack Snyder fan. Bruce Timm was the right man. He was always the right man. He's still there. But even now, they've gone to Walter Hamada, a very, very talented movie producer. I'm not disputing that. But knows jack shit about DC. So again, mistakes after mistakes. People being involved who have no love for DC and no knowledge of DC. I don't mind you not having any love for DC. But Kevin Feige has knowledge of the Marvel Comics, a great knowledge. And so does Bruce Timm. Bruce Timm should be running this now. And if he was running this from the very beginning, we wouldn't be here now. Now, as I keep on saying, so there's no controversy here, I love Zack Snyder's DCEU trilogy and I want to see more and I want to restore the Snyderverse. as I repeatedly say all the time, because you have to in this era and environment we're in, because people misunderstand you. If you're the holder of the IP and you want a successful commercial franchise, would Zack Snyder be the first person you go to? Or would you go to a producer-writer like Bruce Timm, who knows so much about the DC universe? Come on, everyone. It makes sense, doesn't it? And he's still there. Now, the jury's out on Walter Hamada and his central construction of this central DC universe. In fact, a very exciting day, because today, later on, in American time, or actually I think are they shooting in the UK? Black Adam starts shooting today. They could be shooting now, or maybe later on, depending which part of the world they're shooting. Very, very exciting. So, you know, we're really getting in deep into this Hamada universe, right? So we're going to see how they do with that, if they can make it a success. And their plan is to make an interconnected multiverse universe. So that's exciting. Next year we have 4 movies. So I will wait to see what's going to happen. I'm excited about James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. I expect that to be a really good movie, and I expect James to get more DC projects and have his own Suicide Squad universe as well. That's exciting. But the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And next year is the year where we're going to see if they can make a success of this. I would suspect if they don't, that's when we may restore the Snyderverse properly in a central universe. But here's the thing. We shouldn't be here now. We shouldn't be in this situation. Bruce Timm was the man. Bruce Timm is still the man. Do you think he'd turn the offer down? Of course he wouldn't. He's a passionate DC producer. He should be in charge of this whole thing. If you think what he did is special with the DC animated universe, imagine what he could do with a live action one. It was the way to go. But not these bums. These bums are just interested in Hollywood producers who have made mistake after mistake after mistake. Toby Emmerich sold Army of the Dead to Netflix, and now Snyder's doing it. How ironic is that? As I say, mistake after mistake. You know, a franchise isn't like one movie. Listen, a Star Wars franchise is very different to a comic book franchise. When Lucas did Star Wars, he created it. He was the creator. It was a baby, basically, and he brought it up. And now you've got people like the DCEU who know nothing about comic books and don't really get it, right? Now, I think Jon Favreau's a good man, and I think he could do something special, but you've got that civil war between him and Kennedy. This is the environment the industry is in. You have activists versus filmmakers and storytellers. And the filmmakers and storytellers are losing that battle. So it's not a good environment in entertainment. And those people are now invading the DC Extended Universe. So people like Ta-Nehisi Coates, who I know very little about. Now, this is a clever dude, an intelligent dude, but he's a social justice warrior. And I hope he's not thinking of destroying the DCEU or doing a horrible Superman movie. Now, if it's a black Superman, brilliant, awesome. But do that black Superman justice. Don't make it, something that's talking down to your audience for 2.5 hours. Make it special. Make it awesome. Make it epic. And in the background, you can have your commentary. This is what storytellers used to do. Jesus Christ, even in the He-Man Masters of the Universe cartoon, one of the characters used to give us kind of the moral lesson of the day. It wasn't even part of the story. It was just before the credits. Amazing. So these things can be done. So we don't have Bruce Timm, and we're never going to, unless a miracle happens, we're never going to have Bruce Timm. I'm surprised they haven't even given him a movie to do. I think he would have done a great job as Shazam. I'm very happy with David F. Sandberg, by the way. It's a great pick. A brilliant pick. by the way. But we will see. So right now, we have to wait. It's all very well slaughtering Hamada and saying it's going to be crap. It doesn't have an audience right now. Although, I would imagine the kids and the families that watch Shazam will be back for Fury of the Gods. And I would think if Shazam was cameoing in some other films in the Central Universe, those kids and families would be back for that as well. And these kids and families are going to be very interested in Black Adam. As we've already said, shooting starts today. Very, very exciting. So there is an audience there. And Sarnos spoke about representing all voices and all audiences. And I do think that's important. I'm one of those few people who support Snyder as well, who believes that. It can't just be one voice and one vision. That doesn't work anymore. Although Kevin Feige is one voice and one vision, but the different characters represent different audiences. That's the genius of what Feige's achieved over at the Marvel Studios in the MCU. Well, we don't have that. We've never had that. And because of how they started this franchise, we're having to wait and see how the new DCEU is going to work. We're discussing Flashpoint every day. What are they going to do with Flashpoint? How are they going to rework this franchise? Are the rumours true? Are they going to burn down the Snyderverse? More than likely, unless they're stopped. It would be very, very unlikely with Black Adam shooting today that that's going to be stopped. That is happening. They want that. The studio as a whole, and I'm talking about Warner Media and even AT&T, want that. They understand that you need that. You need a diverse franchise that appeals to more than one or two or three or four voices. That's important. Now, whether or not these films can be successful, we're going to have to wait and see. I think Black Adam is going to hit big. I think people are really excited about that movie. It's a character that people are really interested in, and The Rock is a hugely popular figure. So I'm very happy with what's going on there. And I'm pretty happy with what's going on in other corners as well. I think we can say that James Wan did a great job with the first Aquaman. The film made over $1 billion. We're getting a sequel shooting later this year. The Flash movie, as I say, shooting very shortly this month, by the way, or next month or whenever. So that's exciting. Matt Reeves' The Batman has finished filming. That's very exciting. And so there are some exciting things. So we're just going to have to wait and see how they work out. And I have been talking about this a lot this week, and it might be boring. But there's not much news out there, and I thought we need to really look at what went wrong at the core beginning of the DCEU. And as I've said, there's two reasons here that it went wrong. And that's because Christopher Nolan didn't have the understanding that you couldn't give the audience a Dark Knight trilogy, then close it down and then start again. He didn't get that. He wasn't interested in moulding a DC Extended Universe. He wanted to bring someone else to do it. And as talented as that guy is, Zack Snyder, when we're talking about commercial franchises, totally the wrong person to bring in. You can hate me for that, but it's the truth. And what's worse is, you know it's the truth. DC wanted a commercially successful franchise. And so did Warner Brothers. They should never have agreed to bringing Nolan on. They should have rejected Man of Steel. And as I've already said, they should have brought in Bruce Timm to mould the whole universe. And we would have had something commercially viable on our hands to rival the MCU. And that would have been so exciting, everyone. And who knows where we would have been now. Now we're fighting to restore the Snyderverse. We don't know what Walter Hamada's going to do. But we have been told that they are constructing an interconnected universe with TV and films. We have been told by Ann Sarnoff herself that when she came to Warner Brothers, different departments weren't talking to each other. If you work with DC, everyone at DC needs to be talking, right? But we've already been told that the production of Black Adam isn't talking to the production of Shazam! Fury of the Gods. I think David F. Sandberg told us that himself. That's a little troubling. But obviously, it's very different to what happens at the MCU. Because during Avengers and Endgame, all the people running the individual character movies were there and involved. James Gunn was involved. So they could talk to him about these characters, and if there was something they were doing he didn't like, James would tell them. So he was a consultant on those kind of shared movies, right? This is one of the issues Chris Terrio brought up. I repeat, he didn't know if people could talk underwater. Now you can tell him that, and I can tell him that because we've read the fucking comics. Chris Terrio hadn't read any comics. Bruce, I've got Bruce Timm on the mind. Ben Affleck brought him on because he worked with him on Argo. But that's not good enough, everyone. You've got to have people who have knowledge of these DC characters. We know Zach has a great knowledge of these characters. We know he's a fan of the comics. We know him and his kids sat there every fucking week to watch Smallville. So you are dealing with a DC fan. You could literally, even if you wanted to, had Bruce Timm leading the franchise with Snyder helping him. But Bruce Timm being the lead voice, of course. But Zach's visuals with Bruce Timm's coordination and production knowledge and knowledge of the DC, two knowledges of DC, two DC minds together, Snyder's and Bruce Timm. Imagine if Christopher Nolan had brought Bruce Timm on, but he didn't get it. He could have had Snyder and Timm working together. Now, don't ask me if that could have been as toxic as Jeff Johns and Zack Snyder working together. And that takes me to my next point. Jeff Johns. Jeff Johns has become public enemy number one. But why? If it's true he's as toxic towards Zack as we think he is, or we've heard he is, why is that? Why is a placid individual that I met at a fan convention, who normally they talk to people for a very short amount of time, and he spoke to me for about half an hour about the comics, about working with Dick Donner, about his life, how he struggled before he was successful. Very placid, unarrogant guy, nice guy, loves the fans, he talks to fans. He won't be showing his face at any conventions anymore. But I've spoke to Jeff Johns before, and I liked him. But you see, as I said to Jeff when I first met him, I don't know you from the comics, Jeff. I fell in love with you as a writer when I saw your Smallville episode, Legion. And we spoke about Legion for quite a long time. So we're going to kind of compare the mentalities and sensibilities of Jeff Johns' storytelling compared to Zack Snyder's, Chris Terrio's and David Goyer's. So in the episode of Smallville Legion, Brainiac has taken over the body and mind of Clark's best friend, Chloe Sullivan, played by Alison Mack. So the Legion, coming from the future, have come. They have come to kill Brainiac. They have come to kill Chloe Sullivan. Clark will not allow this. The whole episode is about Clark fighting everyone, explaining to everyone that you can always find another way apart from killing someone. That's the moral of that story. So from this Smallville story, and that's the best one Johns wrote. I love Absolute Justice, and I love the other one he did as well. I forgot the other one he did, but I love the other one he did as well. He did 3 stories. Amazing. So I've never read his comics before. I've read them since. But he really did a great job with that episode, because don't forget, he's got to handle the threads of a TV series that's dealing with a Doomsday arc as well. And he's got to handle this kind of one-off story that he's doing, and it's amazing. And as I say, the whole thing is, Clark has to find another way, because he doesn't want to kill his best friend. But this story has a little bit of a twist to it. Because at the end, when Chloe is saved, Johns has Chloe say this: Clark, if there was no other choice, and it was the lives of the world against mine, I hope you would make the right decision. Wow, that hits me. The thought of Clark having to kill Chloe breaks my heart. For him. Because I know Clark and Superman, the Superman that I've been watching and loving all my life, would do anything not to kill anyone. And we can even see in Man of Steel it breaks him to kill Zod. So that's a good element, but it doesn't continue on. They don't continue those themes, right? Now, I don't know if I've said this before. If Superman is going to kill someone, it should destroy him. It should be in his soul forever. Every time he fights someone, he should have flashbacks about it. He should have nightmares about breaking one of the last Kryptonian people's necks and killing them. This thing should really be in his heart and soul. And that's the mistake. Goya didn't want to deal with it after that scene. It was just jokes, and I think he's kind of hot. I think we've already discussed this, haven't we? But we're having this kind of discussion anyway. So that's the mistake of that. So you can already see from Jeff Johns' Legion episode of Smallville where he stands on the no-kill policy. So you've got to understand that this guy, Jeff Johns, who worked his way up, became an assistant, just an assistant to Dick Donner, and then went into comics, worked from the bottom. And so did Zach, by the way. So you've got these two figures, right? Both love DC, both passionate, but they come from different kind of storytelling narratives. Johns doesn't believe in Dark Superman. Johns doesn't believe in Superman killing. So what he's seeing is really destroying him. And Nolan's not allowing anyone to give anything, any advice or anything, which is frustrating Johns. If we go back to Jeff Johns' Vulture interview before the release of Justice League, he said this. I tried to advise them. They didn't listen to me. So we've got to look at this from both perspectives. Maybe if they listened to Jeff Johns from the beginning, there could have been a coming together. But because it became toxic. Because you've got Snyder, who loves DC and wants to do it his way. But then you've got Jeff Johns, by the way, who also loves DC and just has been writing these comics for 20, 30 years of his life that have been so successful. He's reimagined Green Lantern and so many other characters. He's worked on so many other characters. Jeff Johns loves DC, as Zach does. But when we talk about Chris Terrio using the word vandalization, Jeff Johns also felt that these DC characters, especially Superman, were being vandalized. And then you look at it and you think, as great as Zach's movies are, and I wouldn't swap them for anything, even though I'm talking about Bruce Timm and things like that, I still love those films. But where did it get WB? Where did it get the DC Extended Universe? It really didn't get us anywhere. Because look where we are now. They drove him out. They were driven to do stupid things after Zach was forced out. So in the end, nobody's right and nobody's wrong. I can see Zach's point of view, but I can also see Jeff. So just imagine a placid, nice guy, because that's what I think he was. He certainly was when I met him. I've never met Zach. But he looks like a star, brilliant, unproblematic guy. And from what everyone tells me who's met him or spoke to him, or even done like Zooms or shows with him, he's great. And that's great. I have no issues with Zach. I love Zach. Zach is an inspiration to me. He makes me want to be a storyteller in Hollywood, even though I've been in Hollywood and I've tried all that. And I probably wouldn't go back there because it was a horrible experience. Not actually the pitches and the auditions, because you expect to be rejected. Who am I to have my stuff accepted? But it's just the culture there. It's horrible. It really is. And they do treat their artists terribly, by the way. But anyway, Zach's an inspiration. But I can see where Jeff Johns is coming from too. And I think he feels these characters were vandalized. Do I agree with that? I don't know. No, I don't think anyone's vandalizing anything. I think in terms of the Justice League, that these people were in a terrible situation, right? They saw the reaction to BVS and the neck snapping in MOS. They were in a lot of trouble. They didn't know what to do. So everyone's in this terrible state of flux and nobody knows the right decision anymore. It's a fucking mess. The brave decision, the right decision would have been, right, Zach, we're in with you now. We can't back out. This is what's going to happen, my friend. Right, you are going to tell your trilogy, then you're done. Or, Zach, we'll let you have a 3-hour epic where you tell your whole Superman DCEU arc, then you're done. That's what should have happened. Then they should have shook Zach by the hands and it would have been over. But too many voices had too much of a say. And Nolan was nowhere to be seen, even though he has an executive producer credit on Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut. But it's just to credit everyone. That's it. I know he got to see the film with Deb and he said that Zach should never see Justice. And that's great, Chris, but really, you're part of the problem. If you were involved with all of the films and you had a hands-on approach, this would never have happened anyway. But you should never have been involved in the first place, Chris. You weren't the man to lead the DC Extended Universe. The only bonus of you being involved is if your Dark Knight trilogy basically was the DCEU, the beginning of the DCEU, with Man of Steel being the next film. But you didn't want that. So there was no point of you and David being involved in the first place. So I can absolutely see both sides of this. I can understand how Zach feels, but I can understand how Jeff Johns feels. And as I say, to kind of hear the stuff I'm hearing about Jeff Johns, it goes to show you how much he loves these characters to be driven to such a toxic position. But let me be clear here. I do not believe that Jeff Johns is a racist or a sexist, right? Jeff Johns and everyone at WB were in a crazy situation of their own making, of course. But people make mistakes. People make bad decisions. It's a bit like, you know, those whodunits, or not the whodunits, those murder kind of mystery detective shows. You know, when someone accidentally kills their husband or something, you don't know what to do. Oh my God, what am I going to do? So you bury the body. You're not a murderer. You don't think you're a criminal, but you killed someone, you buried a body. And then someone finds out you're a killer, so you kill someone else. Then you kill someone else. This is what the DC Extended Universe is from its very inception. One bad decision after another bad decision. Then you make other bad decisions. Then you do hit pieces as Warner Brother Pictures and you drive Zack Snyder out. Then Zack Snyder's side of things, people start doing articles and letting out all this information and you've got a civil war, right? And it all starts with one murder. And it all starts with one incident. And it's a domino effect, everyone. What we're seeing right now, if I put my neutral hat on, is that no one's going to win here. Then this has become very childish, by the way. Zack's side releasing articles, you know, letting all this, you know, negative information out. You know, Warner Brothers Pictures doing hit pieces. Who's going to win here? I think none of this is working, by the way. We still haven't restored the Snyderverse, have we? Have these articles actually done anything thus far? No. Have the hit pieces for Warner Brothers Pictures done anything thus far? What happened after that? 1.5 million tweets to restore the Snyderverse. So, on neither side is winning, and both sides are acting like children. So this has to end now. This has to end now, and there's films to be made in the central DC universe. Mistakes have been made, and it's Walter Hamada's job. Walter Hamada came in as a fixer because he's an experienced film producer who knows what he's doing, not necessarily having any knowledge of DC films. So this is going to be very, very interesting. What I'm kind of interested as well, they brought Ben Affleck in for Flashpoint, and there were rumours that he actually rewrote his dialogue. Now, we know that Ben desperately wanted to get Chris Terrio in to kind of script doctor BVS. Could it be a situation that this happens again? Now, unlikely, seeing what he just said about, let's just say, the actions of WB Pictures without him mentioning WB Pictures. But what's interesting to me about Chris Terrio, he didn't throw anyone under the bus apart from the situation. That's interesting. Didn't want to go into Joss Whedon. Didn't want to say bad things about Jeff Johns. Could it be that maybe Terrio could script doctor Flashpoint? He would have to do it very quickly. Maybe he's already doing it. We don't know. We'll find out sooner or later. So Walter Hamada, after everything I've said, what should have happened in my opinion, I think that Walter Hamada is a fixer. As far as Warner Bros. Pictures are concerned, he fixed Aquaman. He came in, worked with his old kind of sparring partner, James Wan, and they made a great Aquaman movie. You cannot deny that. And I know that Zach said that nobody talks about the Aquaman movie, but I do, Zach. I talk about it all the time. I had a good laugh about it. And he talks about BVS and Man of Steel being controversial and those movies being spoken about. And that's great. And, all publicity is good publicity. But loads of us talk about Aquaman. It's a wonderful movie. It's an unproblematic movie. And you know that should make us happy. I love that film. It's a brilliant film. It works on so many levels. It works for immigrants who kind of are born in one place, but their parents are from another place. Where do they belong? I certainly identified with that, being someone who has Greek Cypriot parents, as I've explained before, but was born and raised in the UK. So I was always torn. And people used to say to me, you're an outsider on both sides, which is exactly what's happening to Arthur Curry in the Aquaman movie. So we can only wait and see, but I do feel that Walter Amado has been brought in to fix this, and the Flashpoint multiverse strategy is his way of fixing this. Now, whether he can do that or not, time will only tell. But I'll tell you what, everyone, I'm not going to prejudge the situation. I'm going to be excited for these movies, and let's just see what the future holds. So let's see what Scott Edwards has got for us today. Scott Edwards is a DC super fan. He's not a van, he's a fan. And he comes up with questions and articles for me. So a couple of things for me today from Scott at Movies TV Mad for the next DCEU Daily. He should have said, I am loving Superman and Lois so far. Are you? Yes, I am. And I love already have a seat. What? Sorry, Scott. I think you needed to go to the edit button with this post. Let's try and make sense of it anyway. I love already have a season 2. Oh, and I love already. I think what he attempted to say is he's happy that season 2 has been confirmed. I'm hoping we have a crossover event next season of Arrowverse. Do you think we will? Right. I think, Scott, for your own sake, and so you're not disappointed, do not expect Superman and Lois to be involved in any crossover. It might happen, but I think they really want that show to be standalone. Maybe, I don't know. Listen, there were rumours that although kind of David Ramsey's directing a few episodes or an episode of Superman and Lois, he was going to cameo as Diggle. But I don't know if that's true. So I wouldn't, if I were you, expect Superman and Lois and their cast and characters to spin off with the central Arrowverse universe. Arrowverse has a big problem. Crisis on Infinite Earths was huge, like Avengers Endgame was. And it's really hard to top that in terms of the next team up. And I think they've got a bit of a problem because they've been halted by the COVID pandemic. It slowed up any crossovers. And I don't think there is any crossovers because of that reason, because they can't cross. They can't cross sets, basically. And this is the problem with the pandemic. Now, next year, they'll be able to do it. I'm sure they will try and do some crossover. It's going to be difficult with the characters they're losing because don't forget, Supergirl will be done by then, so no crossover for Supergirl. Arrow's already gone. Black Lightning's gone. To a lesser extent, that doesn't really matter because he's not been that integrated. And we've got a new Batwoman to introduce. And so you've lost some of the heart of the universe. In a way, it's like they're rolling the whole thing up, but they're not because we know it's still there and these shows are being recommissioned mostly for other seasons. So it'd be interesting what the future holds there. So I do expect a crossover, but don't expect anything, Scott, in the proportions or the size of Crisis on Infinite Earths. Now, Scott wants to ask me something about the MCU. Now, I'm going to read out what he has to say, but I want to make this clear, Scott. I don't want to be seeing requests for Marvel stuff and Marvel articles every day. This is the DCEU Daily. Now, if there's one point I can read at the end of each video, that's fine. But the MCU will never dominate these videos, and I just want to be clear. So if you start peppering my timeline with MCU requests, unfortunately, and I'm not going to say no pleasure in this, I will have to ignore them. But I'm happy to take one MCU topic at the end of each edition of the DCEU Daily. So let's have a look at this. I know this is not DC related, but you said you would cover other topics as well. Here's a picture of all upcoming MCU films and Disney Plus shows. I was wondering if you could go through them and tell me your excitement level for them. Right. Black Widow, not particularly that excited, but I think it'll be an okay action flick. It's interesting because they're setting up a brand new Black Widow. So let's see what they do there. So what we got. Now, basically, the one I'm really looking forward to is Sam Raimi's Doctor Strange and the Multiverse madness. Now, I was looking forward to this before Sam was involved in this film. I just loved the title. And once I saw Multiverse, I knew that Feige was going Multiverse too. Now, what's going to be interesting is if we do bring the DC back into the conversation and the equation, who's going to be more successful with their multiverse strategy, Feige or Hamada? Well, for Warner Brothers Pictures' sake, it has to be Hamada. But Feige is an old hand now. He knows exactly what he's doing. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is James Gunn wrapping up. He will be done with Disney after that, and he'll be back with DC full time. I just want to make that clear. Really excited about that one. Obviously, WandaVision's on here. I really enjoyed WandaVision. Miss Marvel, I don't know much about, but Secret Invasion is going to be awesome, isn't it? Ironheart, yeah, but nothing. Hawkeye, not really. Armor Wars, know nothing about that. I Am Groot, I think that's animated, isn't it? The Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, yeah, that should be exciting. Moon Knight should be awesome. Loki, really looking forward to Loki. And I think this is the beginning of Feige's multiverse strategy. Really excited for that. What If Summer 2021? That'll be entertaining, but nothing too exciting. And then you've got Ant-Man 3, I think, which is Quantumania. Yeah, that should be entertaining. I'm really interested what they're going to do with Fantastic Four in 2023 because John Watt, the director of, obviously, the Spider-Man MCU movies, Tom Holland's Spider-Man movies, is involved. So it'll be interesting. Captain Marvel 2, semi excited about that because I think the first one was quite solid, by the way. Black Panther 2. Now, this is interesting. This is a controversial one, isn't it? Because obviously, with the actor who died, the lead actor who played T'Challa, I'm a little bit disappointed because they keep on saying how much they loved and respect him. I think they should have wrapped up the title Black Panther and gave maybe Shuri her own movies or something. But basically, these are going to be Wakanda movies. So I'm excited for them, but without the real Black Panther, it's a bit of a mixed thing. Now, Eternals is very, very interesting because the Eternals characters in the Marvel comics are very similar to the New Gods. So I think it's very exciting that we're getting that. We're not getting New Gods, but we're getting Eternals. That says something about Feige and says something about Warner Brothers Pictures as well. And Spider-Man 3. Right, let's talk about Spider-Man 3 before we wrap up for today. Now, originally Spider-Man 3 was going to be another Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. Not particularly excited. Not that I hate the other two. They're just watered down. And they're all right. Tom does a great job as Spidey and Peter Parker. But they're nothing. I mean, I love the first two Raimi films. No one has got that close to telling Spidey accurately and awesomely like Sam Raimi. And I don't care about the web blasters. That's irrelevant to me. If it's relevant to you, that's fine. But now we're hearing so many rumours that we've got different versions of Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, different actors from different franchises, because apparently this is a Doctor Strange is in this movie as well. The multiverse is going to be involved. Look, if this is true, this is the movie I'm really excited for. But by the way, I think I missed her out, She-Hulk. Really excited for She-Hulk. That should be awesome. And I'm going to be honest, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I'm not watching it. I haven't touched it. After I've heard what it's all about, for now, I will go to it eventually, but I'm too triggered right now to even get in that zone or that frame of mind. For me, basically, they're taking a white Captain America, making him an arse, so they can justify giving Sam Wilson the shield. There is no problem with giving a person of colour the Captain America name, title, and shield. But Sam Wilson is a boring character played by an actor who doesn't have much of a personality himself. I'm sure he's a great guy and he's got some great things to say, by the way. But no, Sam Wilson, not because of the colour of his skin, should not be Captain America in my view. But yeah, just going back to Spidey, really excited for Spider-Man 3 with all these rumours, if they're true. And I know they're saying, no one else is in this movie, blah, 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 but they're going to say that, aren't they? What's problematic about all these rumours, because they're huge and they're going around everywhere, and they're clearly spreading the rumours, but denying them at the same time. It's all purposely done by Feige. So if this is not true, this is going to be a very big disappointment to the fans, and that says something about Feige's previous two Spider-Man movies as well. So we will wait and see. So I hope that covers everything for you, Scott. And I hope you've enjoyed today's DCEU Daily. Just remember, just because we don't always agree, just because I stand Zach and I love his movies, it doesn't mean I can just sit here and say nothing about the mess that's made throughout the DCEU. Wrong decisions were made. And for a commercial franchise to be successful, you need someone who, who feels it, who knows it. And it's not just about knowing the comic books, by the way, because Zach does know that, and he's passionate and he loves them. And he's a great visual artist, no question. But someone like Bruce Timm, he's a producer. That's the difference. He's a producer as well. He knows commercially how to appeal to the audience. This is what the DCEU thus far has lacked. But when you look at Shazam, when you look at Aquaman, and you look at these films, those two films were very commercially well publicized and successful to a point. I know Shazam didn't make big money, but it did okay, and the critics and the audiences loved it. So he's already shown Walter Hamada that commercially he can do a good job. But it's early days yet, and we will see what happens. Comment down below, like, share and subscribe, and I'll be back tomorrow with even more DCEU Daily. See you again soon.